and maybe even aerial control. This is the Thunder Sling, and it takes a percentage of the friction. Now, what's great about it is I can attach the load to the same stem where the limb is. If this limb goes out and is covered with foliage and everything, it almost acts as a parachute as it swings down. I know that right now this limb can be supported. If I anchor it from any other place of the tree, I'm making an estimate. Right now, it's like if you're holding your arm out to your side and you try to stand there for a very long time, pretty soon it gets hard. So you know it's a lot of work to hold this limb up. If I can lower this limb without inducing shock, in other words, if it doesn't drop very far or doesn't drop at all, in other words, if this pivot point can be right where my friction takes over, then I won't induce any shock load. So all I'm doing is dealing with the load that's already here, held in a more difficult manner. So if this same load can just be dropped to the side of the tree, then I don't really have any issues as far as estimating how much of a load my rigging point is putting on another part of the tree. So if this was just a regular pulley or a block, and I have a groundy down there on a porter wrap, if this weighs 300 pounds, then I know that the groundy's got to pull 300 pounds just to be able to hold it. And I'm not even talking about shock load. So he's got to hold 300 pounds, that weighs 300 pounds. So we put 600 pounds someplace else in a rigging point. And then when you consider the shock load, it can be even greater than that. The goal here is not to induce a shock load. Let this limb, especially with the foliage, swing down to the side of the tree and not induce those great shock loads. Then, if I can control it from here, this is a Thunder ring, I think generally takes about 20% of the load. If this was being controlled by someone on the ground, they only have to put 20% of the load on the rigging line. That only puts 20% of extra weight on my rigging point. So just to make the math a little bit easier, if this limb weighs 500 pounds, then the groundy's only got to pull down 100 pounds. That 100 pounds only adds to the 500 pounds here. I've only gone up 600 pounds on the forces of this rigging point, minus any shock loads, which is to me a lot better than if this is a straight clean block with very little friction. Then he's got to hold 500 pounds. 500 pounds, you've gone to 1,000 pounds on this load. If I can actually start to shift the control here, take this 100 pounds and even put that on this limb, say it was a little further out and I can put a porter wrap here or something, then I've actually not induced any more load on this branch. So actually I'm going to go ahead and, just for fun, we're going to make our cut, let the limb come down, and I'm going to control the load actually from this point and lower it down from here. So if I'm standing up here someplace, then I'm actually not inducing any load, but the load is much less if I can keep the control and the friction up here at the rigging point. So let's make this cut and see what happens. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. There it goes. Alright, so it really didn't drop very far. And now the load is on the sling, so let's go down and lower it from that sling. Okay, pretty easy. Groundy takes it off. Now I think one improvement that's going to be made on this is pulling it back through the sling.